My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
In my last video, I said this. Whilton Mill is next, which only has me and Richard going to it, at least in the championship contention, so I'm hopeful for a nice class win and my first gold trophy, as I absolutely love that track, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now looking back, I feel pretty embarrassed, as I feel like I insulted all of the other super heavyweights racing and was a bit arrogant about my performances, especially as my heats were pretty awful and I'd been very lucky in the finals. Honestly, Whilton Mill was not a good race week for me at all. I had a great time. It was an absolutely lovely day and the track is a ton of fun to drive around, but my pace was pretty awful, and honestly I can't tell why or what I was doing wrong ultimately. Going into this weekend, I was third in the Super Heavyweight Drivers' Championship, and with P2 and P4 in the championship not coming to this event, I thought that maybe this was an opportunity to fight at the front, but sadly that was not meant to be. And in today's video we will look at exactly what happened and what I feel I can learn going into round 4. So let's begin with practice and how it went wrong from the off. So to start the weekend strong, I got the wrong information through email, and in fairness to Club 100, the document they sent under the name Round 3 Information was named Buckmore Park Round 1, but I blindly read it thinking it was the right information and aimed to arrive at the check-in time of 8:30. Only that was when the driver's briefing was happening, so as soon as I arrived, I noticed I was already late and halfway through the briefing. Luckily I wasn't the only one, but that immediately threw me off as I was late for everything else after that. Not only that, but stupidly I'd been up all night working on a video for my main gaming channel, which is Wisefish if you want to check it out, so I'd been playing tons of Doom Dark Ages, which was awesome, but after getting 3 hours of sleep and driving 2.5 hours, by the point of testing I was absolutely shattered and physically fatigued. It wasn't even 9 AM yet and I was completely shattered. You're probably thinking at this point, damn, any more excuses? Well, yes, there's plenty more to come. Actually, no, that was about it. I just wasn't feeling great today, and being late completely threw me off even further. Coming out of the pits running about 5 minutes into the session already, I have tons of people coming up to me by Christmas Corner, so I just let them pass, but then a nice little wake-up call happened as I locked my brakes going into the hairpin and then got smacked from behind, spinning me out. This is a great morning, I thought to myself, but then we would go on to encounter this, the new final bend. I hate this bend. Previously at Whilton Mill, the final bend had this absolutely mega curb, which, yeah, it was a cart destroyer. You dare touch it, you might as well go home in a coffin with your cart. It was horrible, but it was easy enough to avoid it. At least I thought it was anyway. But it did lead to some people trying to send it as a last lap overtake. I understand them taking it away, but now we get this horrible Miami-like chicane, which I just don't understand, as you just bottleneck up to each other and there's not much you can do about it. To be fair, it's a great technical challenge, one I sometimes got, and if you do get a good exit, you get a great launch going down the main straight and up to Christmas, but I just personally don't like it. I'd have much rather they smoothed out the curb, but what do I know? I don't make tracks. Maybe there is something of importance down there, like Richard III's body or something, who knows. Regardless, testing actually wasn't too bad despite all of the excuses and problems I had today. Only clocking in 18 laps because I was in heat 1, I was able to do a 57.760, which I was relatively happy with, as I was 1/10 faster than the championship leader Richard Newton, albeit 2/10 slower than 5th place Charlie Newman. For context to my pace compared to the C2s, however, I was 5/10 slower than my good friend Tom Edwards or Luke Fletcher, not sure which as they shared the testing session, although it was lap 19, so whoever was out during that time. My fastest was set on lap 18, so my final lap, which I didn't realise, so maybe I could have gone a bit faster as well, but oh well. I also went on to do an overtake on Lenny Wood, another super heavyweight during this session, which was questionable at best, but at least it was some overtaking experience and showed I could at least race, even if it was a bit of a punt off the track.
It could have been killed.
Also, this guy just disappeared. Where did he go? Maybe he's alright. But yeah, testing was pretty positive, and despite feeling like my eyelids weighed the same as my body weight, I was looking forward to race 1, and with both Tom and Luke ahead of me, I hope they do the work for me and I just follow them through. But in fact, it sort of went the opposite way, sort of. Heat 1 we start right from the back in P16, which I don't mind too much because it's an opportunity to follow and make up places and do some overtakes, especially at the start of the day. If Heat 1 was pole, I think I'd be nervous as anything. During our 4 laps of practice, I dropped off of the 2 in front of us for a little bit, but eventually gained back on them and followed them for a bit, also trying to go for an overtake on the one with the green helmet, which was encouraging. If I can stick close to these C2s, then maybe the race could be positive, especially as the 2 C3 starting P17 and 18 were miles behind by the end. As the formation lap began, it was pretty messy as people were somehow miles out of position, and Luke here was trying to tell one of the guys, I think it was Tim Penny, that their GoPro had flown off somewhere during practice, which I know the pain, dude. My last GoPro is still somewhere at Ella Park, waiting for me, hoping I'll return and comfort it back to normal health. Anyway, as we come up to the green lights, they go out and we get an absolutely terrible start, but so does Luke, as it seems there was a bit of miscommunication on the left-hand side, leaving him behind, which allows me to overtake him and Tom by turn 1. Also, because we don't bottleneck up due to the gap, we get a great launch up the straight and almost make a move going into Christmas. At the hairpin, however, I get forced out wide and have to jump the curb as I lose a bit of momentum, with Luke shooting up the inside of me, but I close him off, which might have been a bit too much, but I keep the position, and by the end of the lap close up to the people in front. Going into lap 2, Luke gets an incredible run and makes the move on me up the inside of Christmas, but then gets forced onto the grass by Williams, giving us the place back. The problem is we are stuck behind Williams and we are all faster, and it's up to me to make the move or everyone else just gets frustrated and it'll be me who gets overtaken and loses tons of places. By the way, that's me foreshadowing, so sorry, spoilers. Cutting forward a few laps and Williams picks up the pace so much that he catches Lenny Wood, a super heavyweight, and goes for a move into Christmas similar to what I did in testing. This little battle helps me, Luke and Tom, who were just on my tail, to catch up, and now the task is to get past Lenny. I go for a move on the hairpin but get the outside line into the next bend, which is just impossible to pass on the outside, at least it's very risky anyway, so I drop back behind him and just wait for another opportunity. Going into the final few bends, however, Lenny makes a small mistake as I try to get a good exit from the last bend. However, I get nudged a bit from behind, which causes my steering to go completely, and I get forced wide onto the exit curb, which you really cannot steer on at all, as both Luke and Tom go through.
I won't fight you. I've heard that before.
I get it, I was taking a while to get past Lenny, and for Luke and Tom they were so much faster, I just wish I didn't lose out because of it, but that's racing, I guess. Regardless, I catch back up to the group as we're still stuck behind Lenny and Williams. We are actually doing some good lap times here, which I was happy with as I was sticking to the back of Tom, just hoping for an overtake that happens soon. But Luke tries into oblivion, but it doesn't happen, gets a good launch, but again cannot get through. Eventually Luke goes for a lunge on the sweeping left after the hairpin, but collects Lenny in the process, spinning him out, which gives us the position and allows me to be the top super heavyweight, which isn't the way I want to achieve that, but again, that's just racing. Luke also gets a +3 penalty for this move and another +3 for something else, which I don't know what that was. So that moves us up to just behind Tom as we go into the final lap. Unfortunately, I couldn't do anything more here unless Tom made an error. I had to just settle for whatever position I was in.
If I'm not 16th!
But despite it looking pretty tame in terms of racecraft, I was pretty happy with this result, especially starting P16. We ultimately ended P13 with a fastest lap of 57.8, which was 4/10 slower than Tom and 3/10 slower than Luke. I feel I could have gotten more out of this, but I was still slower than Williams, so even if I made a move on him, he was faster than me, so I think P13 was the best I could do. Now it was time to take that result and maximize on the next couple of races, and then the next one I started on pole. And with the pace I had, I was hoping to finish at least in the top 10, maybe even top 5. But this is where the weekend completely fell apart. I really hoped that starting on pole was going to be a good thing. Last time I started on pole, I got a good start and just held it whilst everyone battled behind me. I was hoping for a similar situation, but that was not going to happen at all. Going down the main straight, waiting for the green light, I felt like I got a good start, but P2 immediately gets the better one, but going into oblivion, someone from behind carried a ton of speed into the bend, pushing forward P5, who then went into Tom directly behind me, which caused me to be pushed miles off the track, almost into the grass, as I lose all of my steering and because of it, drop to pretty much the back of the grid, as I almost get taken out by another cart grinding on the back of another one, and someone flying off into the grass. I then completely missed the braking point and slid into Christmas, smacking Pike here, which luckily didn't take him out, but wow, probably the worst start to a race I could ever imagine. Well, sort of. At least I was still facing forward anyway. I do think someone also pushed me forward, but I don't have a 360 camera, so I can't tell. For now, I'll just take the responsibility, as it does look like it was my fault as I missed the braking point. Luckily for me, another super heavyweight does spin out at the hairpin, so that's something, but again, it's a position gain thanks to an unforced error, but it didn't matter anyways, as Boz goes through, so another position lost once again. I was absolutely fuming under the helmet, and now was stuck behind another super heavyweight who I really needed to pass, and needed to pass them soon. I kind of hoped for a race restart, but yeah, nothing came, and no one got a penalty for loading, because the marshal told me afterwards they couldn't tell who did it, so yeah, really annoyed by that, but it is what it is again. For now, I was trying everything to get past the super heavyweight as I lunge up the inside on the downhill section, but I get the terrible exit and he just reclaims the position. But I know now that he is going slow into that section, so that is where I could have made the move if I could catch back up to him again. At this point, however, we are lapping in the mid 58s, which yeah, 3 seconds slower than the others ahead of us, meaning if I did make the move, that the gap was far too large to gain anything anyway, so it was just the fight for this position and hope for others to get a penalty or something like that. This was my race ultimately, stuck behind the super heavyweight trying to find somewhere to get him, but every overtaking bend he was fast on. I just caught up to him on the straights, so it was just getting frustrating and I was getting very desperate. Eventually, as we come out the hairpin, he goes into the left-hander, taking far too much curb, which throws him off, opening up the inside line for me to make the move much cleaner than last time, and now it was time for me to do my best Roadrunner impression and just run away.
Now as the Roadrunner said to the coyote, meep meep!
I do get away from him, but not by much, as I'm just not consistent in my laps. Some laps are fast, others I get bends wrong completely, and as I cross the line in the end, I just finished 2/10 ahead of him, so not a great Roadrunner impression in the end. I do think, although we are back at the excuse wall once again, which I'll be bringing out a few more times by the end of this video, but I do think my kart was affected by the lap 1 incident, because even when I was on my own, it seems my best lap time was a 58.7, which is 1 second slower than last race. So unless my timings were wrong, and I refuse to believe I somehow forgot how to drive and was now 1 second slower in general, then something was definitely wrong with that kart. I also set it on my last lap, which, yeah, watching it, I don't know how it's 1 second slower, but there we go. So my pole heat was out of the way, and what a massive disappointment. Granted, I was slow this race, but to lose 15 positions in like one bend is just so awful. I'm glad I could make an overtake, but yeah, truly terrible. And that affected my mood for the rest of the weekend, as my wife will tell you. Next up was Heat 7, where I started P8, and this race had a ton of C1s in it, so I was just hopeful that I could challenge for a top 10 again, or at least not lose too many positions and stay ahead of the other super heavyweights. Coming up to the line to start the race, we get a pretty decent start for once, but get nudged into oblivion once again. This time I kept my foot down, desperate to not lose any positions, as we get past a super heavyweight, losing a position to a C1, but ultimately I was happy I got through without major issues. I'm still annoyed how many people just slam into others in that first bend, but no one was doing anything about it. I was now miles away from the group, but trying to close up fast as I watched them battle ahead. Cutting forward a few laps and the gap is about the same, but going into the hairpin, the C1 group behind me late brake and pushed me wide into the bend, allowing all 3 of them to go through and forcing me to jump the curb onto the grass, which, once again, do I just not exist in some races? I get this hard racing, but then there's almost destroying the kart on curbs we've been told not to ride, and I cannot move out of the way in this instance. Anyway, the best I could hope for now was just to follow these guys, catch up to the pack in front of them, and maybe make a move on one of them if they get a bad exit due to an overtake or something like that. But my morale was so low at this point, and behind me was an extremely fast Charlie Newman, who was a super heavyweight doing incredibly well this weekend, so the goal was to just try and keep him behind me, but he was like a rocket, so it wasn't going to be easy. The C1 sort of pulled away, but not by much, so I was pretty happy that I could stay close to them. But really, that was about it for my race. Nothing much I could have done, and luckily I kept Charlie behind me, so that was a win in my eyes, especially as I was the top super heavyweight in the race. But together that meant I had P13, P13 and P11, so really not that great when it came to heat races once again. I just don't seem to be good at heat races at all. Luckily I did make it into the B final, so that made up for an abysmal heat stage, but like in GYG, the super heavyweight had already been won by Richard Newton, who made it into the A final once again. He wasn't lying. He certainly likes this track. But I was now 5th in the super heavyweights in the B final. I had to get past 3 karts to even have a chance of a podium, and some of these guys started right up the front, with Charlie starting in P4. It was going to be incredibly difficult, but luck was on my side in finals before, so I was hopeful I'd be in for another good race. Starting P18, I thought from the off I'd be able to pick up a lot of spots, but as you will see, this race didn't go great. And once again, I will be bringing out the excuse board because this kart was slow as hell on the straights. There was just no acceleration, and I was getting nothing coming out of the bends. Regardless, coming up to the lights, they go green, and you can immediately see the pace difference as we just get left behind. I pick up one position but quickly lose it again, and going up the straight, once again I'm just left behind. A guy gets put on the grass and immediately spins, meaning we have to avoid him as we get caught up directly behind Stuart Kirk, another super heavyweight who did start near the front, but with it 3 others including Tom shoot past me, and I lose more positions as my kart is left behind by all of them going to lap 2. Currently sitting P3 in the super heavyweight, I just needed to get past Stuart ahead of me to get on the podium, but as I catch up through the bends I just lose so much time on every straight, and it's starting to get irritating. Cutting forward, and there is a scuffle between a few drivers, including Stuart leaving an overtaken opportunity as I not only overtake him but a few others and even go for a move on Luke, but I accidentally tag him, and instead of losing time to him I just let him go. But that opens the door to another super heavyweight, and suddenly I went from being in the podium contention to being one behind once again. But I am in the mix, which is super surprising considering everything that's happened. Although I get an abysmal exit onto the main straight and a huge snap on the exit of Oblivion, leaving me vulnerable as I got to defend from Stuart, who is now directly behind me. Going into the next lap, however, the straight up to Christmas is my enemy once again, as Stuart just breezes past me as if I'm in a different category. Either he had a mega exit on it, or I just lacked the top speed, which I really believed I was. He was through, and that podium spot was quickly fading. I tried to stick close to him in the hope that I'd be able to get an opportunity later on. Coming out of the final bend, however, another super heavyweight, Aaron Jones or Fernando Alonso, who took the time out of Monaco to take part in this race, overtakes me, and once again we are down another position. And by this point I knew the podium was gone, and I was just trying not to finish last at this point. It's not like I had a bad final bend either, so I don't get where this time was going. Just coming out of Christmas, I had lost like a 10th, and I felt like I was nailing these bends, so watching this back is just making it more frustrating because, like in my second race, where the hell is the time going? I start losing pace to Aaron in front of me after a while, and by this point I'm just in the middle of nowhere, and then another guy just overtakes me out of nowhere as if I'm just getting the blue flag or something. I do manage to catch the pack a little bit at this point, and I was hopeful that maybe something would happen or the battles would lead to more overtaken opportunities, but any time I got super close was in the last few bends, and I just found nowhere to get the move done as we all bottleneck up to the last bend. A shout out to Tom by this point, however, who is miles away in the distance by the way, but he was able to move up 7 positions and was sitting in P10, so a really good race for him. Luke also made his way up the field but was hit with a +6 penalty for something that happened. I wish I could show you, but maybe go and check out Kart Bros to see if they show it somewhere there. Back to my race, and I somehow lose a ton of time to the pack in front as I think I was defending from another recovering super heavyweight who was directly behind me. Luckily I placed the kart well and kept him behind, but it was damaging my gap to the guys in front. But sadly on the final lap the gap was huge, and I had to just accept that maybe Whilton Mill didn't like me. Although I will argue my pace wasn't that bad, I just think I got super unlucky with karts and incidents that were going on. In this final, my fastest lap was a 57.750, still 1 second faster than race 2, which still makes no sense to me, and I was only less than 1/10 slower than Stuart, who got on the podium in P3, so it wasn't like I was miles off the pace, but it did seem like I had a straight line problem, and maybe that could have been exit speed, but I truly believe I lacked acceleration on the kart in particular, as that wasn't a problem in the other heats. But regardless, Whilton Mill, love you as a track apart from that last bend, but you were not kind to me me in this round, and that was a real shame. I thought I could get a great result from this, but it just wasn't meant to be, and P6 was the best I could do, it seems. Luckily, I still sit P3 in the championship, but with some of the other drivers coming back after taking a few off, it's certainly going to be hard to keep that position. But up next is Risington, a newer track to the calendar, so maybe that could be good for me. I've already loaded up my sim again, and I'm definitely going to be practicing more in preparation. I haven't touched it in so many weeks or months or years or whatever it is, so I really feel like I can do a bit more on that, and that'll help me in the racing. But that's all for now. Thank you if you were able to get to the end of this video. You're awesome for that, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like always, please let me know of anything you think I should look at to improve on. I'm always down for some advice as I want to grow and get better. But yeah, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.